Hare Krishna, everybody. I'm just adjusting something. Just realized, did I actually have my volume up properly? Just one second. Okay, my apologies about that. Just always something that's not quite right. Hare Krishna, everybody. Okay, outside. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everybody, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Nitai Satchinandana, Nitai Satchinandana, Nitai Satchinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Nitai Satchinandana, Nitai Satchinandana, Nitai Satchinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radha, Jaya Radha, Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Nitai Go Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Nitai Go Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Nitai Go Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo. Gora Premanandi Shri Krishna Sankirtan Ki Jai Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama 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 Hari Hari. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dublin Sunday program, which is currently being conducted online due to, I guess, obvious reasons at this point in time. And Sarumi, just to mention, I saw your message flash up on my screen. Yeah, that would be great. If there are any questions, if you can send them to me to the other mobile, to Goloka's mobile, that would be fantastic. Thanks very much. Okay, so let me start with a few invocations. Om Ajana Tamaranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swaya Upagadamayam Dadati Swabadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama 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 Hari Hari Hare Krishna. So I thought today I would talk on a little bit about remembering Krishna. Krishna, just in case there's anybody tuning in who is new to these talks and new indeed to the Hare Krishna movement, the word Krishna is a Sanskrit word, and it just literally means, when translated to English, actually one meaning of it, there are multiple reasons, but certainly one of the most important translations of the word Krishna is that it means the most beautiful, all-attractive person. And it's a name, a reference and a name for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's what we'll be discussing today about remembering Krishna, remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it's described that if there's one thing that we can do with our lives or the best thing that we can do with our lives is throughout our days, leading up to the point that we leave this world, if we can somehow or another manage to, if you like, train ourselves that at the point of departure from this world to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the single most positive thing we can do. Because if we can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead when we're departing this world, it's described that that is where we will go. We will go to the abode of the Supreme. So if you like, our whole life is really a training ground for that, to perfect that ability to remember Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at the time that we transition from this world to wherever we may be going. As I say, if we remember Krishna, then certainly we're going to a pretty wonderful place. But there are other places we could go. But of course, they'll all be immediately eliminated if we can manage somehow to remember Krishna at the point of departure. So there's one verse in the Bhagavad Gita spoken by Krishna himself. The Bhagavad Gita, again, for anybody who's new to these talks, literally means Bhagavad or Bhagavan is a name also for Krishna, for the Supreme Person. It means one who is full in all opulences. There are 6 primary opulences, if I can remember them off my top of the head. Fame, beauty, wealth, renunciation, knowledge, and wisdom, I think. So it's another name for the Supreme Person, one who is full in all of those opulences. All of us have them to some degree. We have a certain amount of wisdom, a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of strength. Strength is the other one, actually. Wisdom and knowledge are the same. Excuse me, strength is the other one. So we all have a certain amount of strength, certain amount of beauty, certain amount of knowledge, certain amount of renunciation, etc. But the Supreme Person has them in totality, in a complete sense, whereas we don't. We have them in a partial sense. So Bhagavad Gita, Gita means song. So basically the Bhagavad Gita is the song of the Supreme Person. So in the last chapter, the 18th chapter of that book, the Bhagavad Gita, there is one nice verse, Man manabhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. And Krishna, I have the English translation here, Krishna is saying, I'll read it word for word, always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Krishna is talking this to Arjuna, or speaking this, singing this, if you like, to Arjuna. And he's referring to Arjuna here as his very dear friend. Always nice to have very dear friends. And even nicer when that, when your very dear friend is Krishna. And of course, Krishna is the friend of everyone. So as much as he's saying here to Arjuna as his very dear friend, we all are dear friends of Krishna. Of course, it's our choice and our free will whether we want to be Krishna's friend. But if we do want to be Krishna's friend, Krishna is certainly our very dear friend like that. So always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this. So that's the point about coming to Krishna without fail at the time of departure from this world. And as I say, if we can remember Krishna at the time of departure, then we will go there. And the beauty of that, just to quickly recap, is that our constitutional position is that we're all eternal spiritual beings. But currently we're residing in a world that is temporary. And those two things are what we refer to as rasa basa, or a contradiction. They are a contradiction. Because one of the qualities of being an eternal spiritual being, and Anandamaya Abhyasat, one of the qualities is that we are eternally pleasure seeking. We want to be happy. We want to have pleasure and we want to be happy. So even though we're in the temporary material world, we're still seeking happiness because that's our constitutional position, to seek that happiness. But because we're eternal and we're currently in a temporary situation, we can never achieve that, because every pleasure that we seek in the material world has to come to an end. Just by definition, it has to come to an end because it's temporary. And therefore, what we're desiring, eternal happiness, actually eludes us in the material world. So the goal here is that at the time of death, that we go to Krishna. Because when we go to Krishna, the world that Krishna is residing in, his eternal abode, is eternal. And we're eternal. So when we go there, we can fulfill that desire of wanting to be happy. Very simple, because we're eternal and that place is eternal. But this place that we're in right now, it's all temporary. And whatever you can see behind me, these books, these bookshelves, folders and files, and you can generally see that I've got a messy bookshelf or shelves. They're all temporary. In due course of time, even though this wood is solid, nice wood, it will eventually rot, disintegrate, and go away because it's temporary like that. But we're eternal. That never happens to us. So the only place we can be happy is in the eternal spiritual world. So remembering Krishna, this goal to remember Krishna, very wonderful goal. And it reminds me, there's one story that it reminds me of. Interesting story. This is an ancient story, but you can put it into a modern day context, although some of the examples won't be particularly modern in one sense, but you can put it in a modern day context. And that is that there was once this prince, so the son of a king. And as soon as he was old enough to sit on a horse, to ride on a horse, his father took him out as is, fathers like to take their sons out. Nowadays probably it's not so much horse riding, more football, go to football matches, although can't even go to them these days. That's the wonderful thing of the material world. We have all these aspirations, and, different people living in the world have all these different aspirations. And I have to mention this given the circumstances we're in. The thing that the governments all around the world are struggling most with to try to quote unquote go back to normal is what they refer to as the hospitality industry. And the hospitality industry is essentially, people flying and taking holidays, people going to restaurants, people going to pubs and nightclubs and all that kind of thing. For us devotees, we would probably not use the word hospitality, we would use the word sense gratification, So it's interesting that this virus is having the biggest impact, in one sense, the biggest impact on the sense gratification industry, which ultimately is a good thing. So I'm mentioning football matches. They're not going to bring you eternal pleasure. Pubs and restaurants, football matches, whatever it may be, they're not going to bring you eternal pleasure. So in one sense, it's good that we're not able to avail of them at the minute. But anyway, so this king, as is the tendency with fathers and their sons, whenever they get old enough, they want to sort of bring them out to do something that the father does himself. So in the case of this king, it was horse riding. So he brought him out horse riding, and wherever they went in through some forests and this and that, and the weather turned, and there was some different difficulties took place. And eventually the son became separated from his father, And although the father put out search parties, etc., somehow or other the son wasn't to be found. And what actually happened was that shortly after the son, wherever he was hiding under bushes or taking some shelter somewhere and whatever, trying to protect himself from the difficult situation he found himself in, what happened next was the next day, I think, next morning, was that he was found by some pig farmers who had, farmed pigs for a living like that. And they took him in, very kindly in that sense. They saw a young child, unable to fend for himself, etc. and whatever. So they took him in. And the son lived with them, actually, very happily for many years. Very, very, many years like that. And in one sense, all was well. And then one day, when the son was now, I think the son was into his 20s maybe, certainly late teens, that kind of things, maybe sort of 10 years or thereabouts after he had been lost. He was again in the forest, and what happened was one of the king's ministers was passing through. And the king's minister saw this boy, or this man now, young man at this stage, and he immediately recognized him. And he says, oh, and he came over to him and was talking to him like that, and he was saying actually, you're not a pig farmer, you're actually not from this community. You're the son of the king. And of course the son, he took this, it was hard for him to understand this, etc. But eventually anyway it was all figured out, and the son went back and spent the rest of his life, in his quote unquote rightful position as the heir to the throne. Of course, he always kept a fond memory and a likeness, etc., for the community that had reared him and had looked after him so nicely after him getting lost in the forest. But Prabhupada gives the example of that in the context of that's exactly the situation that we're in. We're the son of the king, or the daughter of the king, sons and daughters of the king, and that king is Krishna. And the king in the story that I just told, he in that context is representing Krishna, representing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the son is representing us, the living entities, that we're all sons and daughters of the Supreme Person. And the minister in this story is representing the spiritual master, or the guru, who tries to connect us with Krishna, tries to connect people in the material world with Krishna. So the king said that, you're not from this community, you're not the son of a pig farmer, you're actually the beloved son of the king of this nation, of this domain, like that. But Prabhupada, as I say, explains that it's the same to us when we come to the material world. Whatever body we assume, whatever situation we assume, so the prince, he assumed the situation of being a member of that community, the pig farming community. So the same with us. When we take on whatever body we take on, if we take on the body of a spider, we will identify with being a spider. If we take on the body of a dog, we will identify ourselves as being a dog. If we take on a human body, we'll identify as being human. And of course, there's more breakdowns than that. If we're born in Ireland, we'll take on the identity, oh, I'm an Irish body. Or if you're born in England, I'm an English body. If you're born in America, I'm an American body. If you're born in India, I'm an Indian body. If you're born in Australia, all the different various countries of the world. But that's actually a forgetful position. That's not our true position. Our true position, every one of us, regardless of the body we possess, whether it be insect, animal, fish, human, and whether it be, as I've just gone through, different nationalities, different colours, whatever it may be, that's not our true identity. Our true identity is that we're the sons and daughters of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is a very, it's a very profound point for us to understand. Very profound point for us to understand. Because if we don't understand it and we continue to misidentify with whatever particular body that we're living in at this particular moment in time, that just prevents us. It's a major obstacle, a major blockage to us developing our eternal relationship with Krishna and going home to Krishna. Because we're misidentifying and we're not understanding what our real position is. And we should understand that, well, first off, this knowledge, Krishna also tells us in Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vijaya Raja Guyam, that this knowledge is the king of education. And it's the king of education because it's informing us that we're different from this temporary material body. And actually explains it's the most secret knowledge because it gives direct perception of who we are through realization, not through somebody telling us, but through us realizing it. It gives us the understanding of what we are. So this knowledge is very important because without this knowledge, even great personalities like King Indra, so for many devotees and people from an Indian background, they will be very familiar with Indra, who is a demigod, so a servant of Krishna. And particularly Indra is in charge of things like the weather and stuff like that. But he's an incredibly powerful personality, big powerful personality. But one time, I don't really have the time. I guess it's already nearly 4 o'clock to go into the details. But anyway, one time he due to different misdemeanors and different circumstances, he had to take the body of a pig, ironically enough, we're talking about pig farmers, of a pig, or what's more commonly known, at least in India, as a hog. So he had to go into the body of a hog. So Indra's known as as I said, the king of heaven is how Indra, that's his title. This incredibly powerful demigod, just the life that we live here on this planet, and even, the extremely so-called privileged people, whoever the leaders of countries and royalty and wealthy people, that is not even a speck of sand in a vast beach, or a speck of water in a vast ocean, compared to the opulences and the incredible situation that these demigods have. So Indra, he was one of these incredibly powerful personalities. Yeah, he had to take the body of a pig, of a hog. And when he was in that body, he completely forgot his real identity as Indra. And he was perfectly happy, as hogs are, walking through the streets, and whenever they find some stool, things that we recoil from instantaneously because of the smell and horrible, obnoxious kind of thing that stool is, etc. But hogs, they immediately smell it, they love it, and next thing they're sticking their heads in the ditch or whatever, in the shore, in the drains, and they're happily eating the stool, drinking the urine, etc. Quite horrible, really. But that's what can happen when we forget who we are. Nothing is static. We see the world as we see it now, and all these huge developments recently, mainly I think because of this coronavirus, but you see all these other movements because of misidentification with the body, thinking I've got a white body and I'm superior to somebody who's got a black body, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. All misidentification, thinking that we're this body. We're all spiritual beings, and spiritually we are all equal. There is no distinction between any of us, not just the human beings, but even the animals, etc. On the spiritual platform, we are all equal. And it's just through misidentification with these bodies that we think we're superior to other creatures, other humans, whatever it may be. But we see the world is not static. All these different tumultuous things that seem to be happening now. But through the generations, you will see that. In the 60s, they're out in the streets of America, whatever, protesting the Vietnam War. They don't do that anymore because that's all gone and over. Now there's new things to protest about. So the world is constantly in a state of flux like that, and things are changing all the time. So don't think that the situation we're in right now won't change, and it most certainly will change at the point of death when we're leaving these bodies. And if we're not remembering Krishna, we don't know where we will go. Just like Indra, he came down ultimately and then had to take the body of a hog, of a pig. So don't think that, I'm always going to be, I don't know, in my nice comfortable situation in Ireland or England or America, wherever it may be. No, things are always in a constant state of flux until we fully realize who we are. And then we're able to go back to the spiritual world with Krishna. Then there is no more flux. Then we are back in our eternal home, and there's no more anxiety, no more fear, no more worry, no more stress. None of those things, they don't exist in the spiritual world like that. So Indra could take the body of Hog. Think what could happen to us. Anyway, so the prince eventually then took up his rightful position as the son of his father, the king. But as I say, Prabhupada draws that analogy of what that situation means and what it's all about. And just in the context, I've given the example, of course, of Indra having to take the body of a frog. There's another example that Prabhupada uses. And again, it kind of helps to understand the illusion that we can very quickly get into, and we can over-assume. Well, firstly, we assume our position is sort of central, that and we can all relate that to some degree as well. I can't remember what age it changed. I would have been relatively young, but up to a certain age, is it 6, 7, 8, 9, is it even 10, whatever it is, you're kind of thinking your parents are the best parents in the world. But of course, all children, or certainly most children, there may be some exceptional cases, but most children are thinking exactly the same, that their parents are the best in the world like that. So we shouldn't think that we're the center of the universe, because that isn't actually the reality. So Prabhupada gives this other nice example about misunderstanding our position. That once there was a frog who, as most frogs do, they live in relatively small expanses of water, little ponds or whatever they may be. And this mother frog, one day her son happened to wander off to a nearby lake. And when they went to that lake, they saw an elephant. The baby frog saw an elephant. And of course, elephants are big. And by the way, I should mention they're vegetarian. So anybody who thinks that you have to eat meat to be big and strong and healthy is just in total illusion. I'm sure you don't need to be informed of that, but just came to my mind because elephants are so big and all they eat is grass really and different things like that. But they're pure vegetarians. Huge animals and they're pure vegetarians. It's quite amazing. Anyway, so this baby frog, they saw this elephant by the lake. And then when they came back, the baby was all excited and came back to his mother and was saying, "Hey, mother, I saw this huge animal today. Absolutely huge animal." And the mother said to the son, "Oh, really? Well, how big was it?" And the baby was saying, "Oh, it was much bigger than me and much, much bigger even than you. And even the biggest frog I know, much, much, much bigger than the biggest frog I know." So then the mother frog, they have that ability, frogs, to do that. They puff up their chest, they make themselves bigger. And then the mother was saying, "Is it this big?" And the baby frog kept on saying, No, much bigger, much bigger, much bigger. And the mother kept on puffing herself up. "Is it this big? Is it big?" And the son, no, much bigger, much bigger. You know how children are, you get quite frustrating, But of course, in this case, the child was completely accurate, no matter how big the mother frog blew herself up, she was never going to get to the size of this elephant. So kept on saying like that no, Mum, this animal I saw was much, much bigger. And then the mother went one more time to expand herself one more time, and she exploded. She actually exploded. Frogs do explode, by the way, not necessarily specifically puffing themselves up like that, but it's something to do with temperature and whatever that can happen. But anyway, the purport, if you like, or the explanation that Prabhupada gives to that is that in the material world, we all become quite puffed up with our situation, proud of our situation, and we all do this. If we do something of note, and of course it's good to do something of note, Nothing against that whatsoever. It's very, very good. Just if you take Srila Prabhupada, all the things that he achieved in his lifetime, absolutely extraordinary and glorious like that. But the goal is to always give the credit, because we didn't create ourselves. It's not that we created ourselves, even from a biological point of view. Obviously, our parents did, but then you can trace it back, right to the origins of creation. And then, of course, the creation is ultimately coming from the Supreme Person, from Krishna. So that's where the credit should go. We shouldn't take the credit. So doing good things, wonderful things, absolutely. But just that we understand to who the credit belongs and we don't take it for ourselves. But that is a big tendency we have. We take credit for ourselves and we become quite proud, and we become quite proud. I was going to say something else, but we become, when people tell us that we're great or we're nice or we're this or we're that, it can be quite nice to hear, as the saying goes, flattery will get you everywhere. And that's the reason, because people like to hear flattering news about themselves. So that's the example that Prabhupada gives, about the elephant like that. About the frog and exploding, because we become puffed up like that with material opulence, with our intelligence, whatever it may be. All of these things, whatever this misidentification is, ultimately initially certainly with the gross external material body, but then all on different subtle levels. It's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada explains many times that the reason that we came to the material world in the first place, God knows how long we've been here. Who knows? Maybe this is our first lifetime, just fallen, but maybe it's our 200 billionth lifetime, who knows, We're eternal. So once we accept that we're eternal, it means there's no beginning and there's no end. So therefore, literally, we could have been here for, God knows how long. And literally, God is the only one who does know. And we won't go back to the spiritual world until we free ourselves from this misidentification and this tendency to become proud and puffed up. Actually, I was reading the other day, and I have it here somewhere. I was reading the other day that this was from a scientist, actually. And the scientist, famous scientist, well-respected scientist, George Wald was his name. I personally never heard of him until I recently was reading this. Anyway, his name was George Wald, W-A-L-D, if you want to Google him. And he again was a theist. He believed in the existence of God, George did. But of course, the community that he was associating with and living with generally don't. I'm not sure the exact ratio or percentage split, but generally speaking, it's a significant majority of scientific people, and particularly in the sciences of understanding the origins of the universe, actually, those types of sciences, that the majority, I think a significant large majority, are atheistic. There's not so many theists or people who accept the existence of God. To some degree, you'd say that's almost counterintuitive. You would kind of imagine that, seeing the vastness of the universe. And, I remember one time I was in America, and one devotee who's interested in these areas, etc. But anyway, they had a fantastic telescope, like a really, really super duper expensive one, that I practically had to have my hands tied behind my back before they'd let me put my eye to the whatever you call that, the lens, for fear that I was going to do something with this and damage it. But it was such a powerful thing, and I looked in, and my gosh, wow, you look up and you see the vastness of the universe. And of course, even with this powerful telescope, I was only seeing a tiny, tiny fraction of this universe. There's millions of universes, so just a tiny, tiny fraction of this universe. But boy, was it impressive. I mean, you just couldn't begin to consider how many stars I was looking at and how many of them there were. So you kind of imagine, that people involved in that field, they would have some awe and reverence that, wow, who's behind all this? Because in our existence, in our life, we know that nothing happens by chance. If you look at different cities, they're always talking, Ireland's talking about their public transport system, and it's not so good, and this, that, and the other. So they go to countries where they have good systems of public transport or cycle lanes or whatever it may be. But the point is that, there's a design to all of these things. Some designs are better than others, but there's designs to all of them. And what's behind a design is a designer, a person who's come up with the design like that. So all of our experiences in this world are such that that nothing happens by chance. Yet somehow, with this extraordinary creation that's the most mind-boggling and just stupendous thing, the canopy at night of all the stars and planets. Somehow we think, oh, it happened by chance. It just really has no logic. There is no logic, reason, or argument to that. And I've talked before, I think, it just comes to my mind again, if I can remember it, because I just think it was such a brilliant thing that there was a big paper done by a group of scientists, well, not just one, but a whole group of renowned scientists, about, of course, the latest definitive conclusion on the origins of the universe. Just even by definition, how silly is that? The latest definitive, meaning that it's going to change. And so many of these scientific theories are changing all the time as they find bones here, there, and everywhere that predate what they thought they had before. So they're constantly in flux in terms of their thinking on these things. But anyway, I read this article, and the kind of key of it was many, many pages, but there was a couple of sentences, that was really the essence of the whole article, and it was that. And a couple of sentences were something like, this universe came into existence out of nothing, because that is the basic premise of the atheistic theory and philosophy of the creation of the universe, is that it came from nothing. Of course, it didn't come from nothing. They even say that it was some gases that came together and exploded, and then from the gases came a primordial soup, and from the primordial soup came some sort of bacterias that evolved in the primordial soup to the point of becoming fish, and then insects and whatever crawled out of it, and then birds came, and then animals, right up to the humans, Anyway, I could go on about that for a long time, but I won't. I'll just go back to so that's their basic premise. It came from nothing, even though it didn't. They even accept it came from gases. Of course, they never asked where did the gases come from. It's like, no, the gases were just there, Anyway, so the cosmos came out of nothing. Next sentence, however, because nothing, whatever nothing is, because nothing is unstable. Nothing is unstable. I never knew that until I read this article, that nothing is unstable. And because nothing is unstable, something had to come from it. Because nothing is unstable, something had to come from it. And what came from it was all these incredible universes. The ones we're aware of, there's many, many more that we're not even aware of, but they all came out of nothing. Just simply because nothing is unstable, something had to come. I wish I could get a house, on top of the hill out of nothing. I mean, that would be fantastic, or I don't know, I could get whatever. It just doesn't happen. It's just so crazy. So that's the atheistic view. So this chap, George Wald, who is a theist, brilliant quote, absolutely brilliant quote, if you can stick with me on this. Very short, but just for it to sink in. He says, I do not want to believe in God. I do not want to believe in God. Which is a very powerful statement, because what he's doing here is he's reflecting all of his associates. He's meaning they do not want to believe in God, because he does. Of course, he could also be saying it from kind of a perspective of humility mixed with challenge, if there's such a thing. In other words, because the very nature of believing in God, belief actually is a word that we don't assign much relevance or importance to. I might believe that I've got the best head of hair in Ireland, but clearly I don't, but I might still believe it. So what use is my belief? My belief is, or I have the best eyesight in Ireland. Clearly I don't, because when I take those off, I can barely see the bookcases behind me. So my belief of these things is kind of irrelevant. It's neither here nor there. But anyway, what he's saying here is, I do not want to believe in God, because once you believe in God, or accept the existence, let's put it that way, accept the existence of God, or the Supreme Person. Excuse me. What does that lead to? It's kind of very natural, very obvious what it leads to. If we accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead And according to the Vedic literatures, which the Bhagavad Gita are a part of, it's even more incredible, because the Vedic literatures say that this creation, because the Christian tradition, which I come from, my parents were Christian, and I come from the Christian tradition, their understanding is God worked for 6 days on the creation, and then on the 7th day he had a rest, and that's why Sunday is, people don't generally work, or traditionally they don't, because God worked for 6 days creating and then took a day off to rest. However, the Vedic literatures explain that all that Krishna does as it relates to the creation of all these vast universes is that he glances. He just glances like that over the material energy, and then it sets in motion a whole series of events. So Krishna didn't work for 7 days or 6 days. Krishna worked for, 1/6 of a second, just glancing, and that was it. And he didn't need a rest, after doing that. So once we accept there's a supreme person that has created all these universes, we can't do that. What can we create? What can we create? It's very limited what we can create. And what we can create just comes from all the different material elements that are provided for us anyway. We can't create those. We just manipulate them. So if we accept someone who created all these universes, we can't do that. So naturally, our position to that person is one of subservience, because that person's superior to us, because we can't do what that person has done. So to that degree, then, people, they do like to resist the existence of God, as George is saying here. I do not want to believe in God, because it does lead to a logical conclusion that we should start to accept this person as our superior because of their superior abilities, etc. So I do not believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible. Brilliant. There's one more few words. I'm nearly finished. But just if we absorb that. I don't want to believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible. So the innate, inbuilt resistance that we have to the existence of somebody who is superior to us, because that, that takes humility. We don't like to think people are superior to us, as a general rule. So because of our inbuilt resistance, our innate, we're born with it, this resistance to accept somebody else as superior to us. Therefore, George, and his contemporaries, they're choosing to believe in something which they know is scientifically impossible. That's what it leads to. So much resistance, you lead to some ridiculous scenario where you know it's impossible what you're believing in, but you'll choose to believe in it because for you it's a lesser of two evils. And then the very last part is, believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible, spontaneous generation leading to evolution. Incredible. These people, they need to be given a platform. Why is it in this world? Well, I kind of know why it is, because there's so much resistance to the existence of a supreme person. These people aren't given proper platforms. What he's saying here is exactly what I just said at the beginning. Their philosophy is there was gases wandering around. Where do they come from? Who knows? Maybe from the cosmic gas company. Who knows? So the cosmic gas company didn't fix the leak in their pipes, so some gas came out of the pipe, and these gases are floating around in the ether, out there, billions of light years away, whatever. And then they somehow or another come together, and when they come together, they're incompatible, and you get this massive explosion. And from that explosion, this, what they call a primordial soup, don't recommend anybody to be eating it or drinking it, but some primordial soup, and from that then chemicals eventually come and mix, and one cell amoebas are created, and then from them one cell amoebas you get some kind of insects coming from that, fish, whatever it is, then birds and reptiles, and then animals and humans. That's what he's saying. Spontaneous generation leading to evolution. Spontaneous is the key word. Just happened. How unscientific is that? These people, they claim to be to be rooted in logic, reason and argument and science. We hear that phrase a lot lately, actually, because of the coronavirus thing. We have to trust in the science, trust in the science. So this is a spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation means it came from nothing. Yet, when you try to explain that actually, does this not sound more logical? About an eternal supreme person, etc., whatever in the creation, we could go into that again, don't have time for that today, but that's all explained very vividly and very exactly in great detail in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They just reject that out of hand. And no, we'll go for this spontaneous generation. And even on that point, it's kind of interesting. We still have single cell amoebas or whatever. They still exist. We still have them. And they led to, what was first there? I think it was like some sort of frog spawny type stuff, that type of creature, and then you got those kind of water-based kind of reptiles and insects and fish eventually. And then some of them eventually crawled out of this primordial soup onto land. And then birds and flying creatures came from it as well. But basically speaking, at this end of the scale, we've still got those one cell amoebas. And at every stage along the scale, right up until human beings, they're all there. They're all in existence now. Supposedly at the beginning of the universe, according to these materialistic scientists, at the beginning of the universe, there was only this. There was only the one cell amoebas. But then spontaneous generation leading to evolution. So then it led to the evolution going all the way through. But now, according to them, which is also interesting, it's not really logical. Surely the evolution should continue beyond the human species. But anyway, that's another discussion. But right now, as it stands, we have the one cell amoebas and we have the human beings. We have the full spectrum. So when you say to them, when you ask the question, which has been asked many times, and as far as I can figure out, there's only ever been one answer given. And the question is, okay, we have the one cell amoebas, we have the human beings and everything in between. So where is this creature? What they refer to different things, Neanderthal man, then they've made movies about it, the abominable snowman, the Yeti, the Sasquatch, they've got all these different names for it, depending on what part of the world you're from. You ask them, we've got everything, the one cell amoeba, the human being, where is this thing, somewhere in the middle here or somewhere up this end, I guess, where is this thing that's half man, half ape, half chimp, half animal, half man, where is that? And the only answer I've ever heard for that question, both when I've asked it myself to some scientific people, but also in different things I've read, this, that, and the other, the only answer you get is, oh, that's the missing link. How convenient. How absolutely convenient. You present a theory, present a philosophy, a theory, whatever it may be, and then when someone comes up with a tough question, you just say, oh, that's unexplained. Oh, that's a missing link. Or we're coming to that. We'll have that answer. Probably used to use the phrase with scientists in particular, not just scientists, but scientists in particular, post-dated checks. I remember in my early life, in doing some type of sales, the one thing you never wanted to take was a post-dated check. Particularly, it was kind of okay if you were staying in the one area for your whole time, if you like. But if you were just transient, if you were just moving through somewhere and heading back to wherever you were from or whatever, post-dated checks became very complicated if they bounced, because then you had to try and figure out how to get back to the person, this, that, and the other. So probably always said, post-dated checks. Don't accept post-dated checks. And that's what, anytime you ask a question they can't answer, that's what you tend to get. You tend to get this post-dated check. So this chap, George Wald, let's read this thing again. I do not want to believe in God. That could really apply to all of us in some respects, because of that resistance to accepting somebody superior to us. I do not want to believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible. Spontaneous generation leading to evolution. And the funny thing is, if you believe in that, you'll stay in this material world. You may think it's due to spontaneous generation that leads to evolution, but whatever it is, you'll stay in this material world until you come to the conclusion, no, there's nothing spontaneous about this. And the only evolution that exists is spiritual evolution. Not material evolution, spiritual evolution. All these forms, they all pre-exist. They're all there, It's just the spirit evolving through different forms. And that can go the other way too. And that's why at the beginning, as I said, it's so important for us to understand what the situation actually is, so as that we can make a real endeavor to first to start our relationship with Krishna, and then evolve that relationship and build on that relationship, increase that relationship with Krishna, so as that when we are transitioning from this world to the next, we have this wealth of training of wanting to remember Krishna, wanting to serve Krishna. And of course, in this age, as I'm sure many of you listening know, the best, most effective way that we can do that is by chanting Krishna's holy name, as we were doing before I started speaking, the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I think that is probably reasonably good timing, actually. I'm looking at the clock here and it's telling me it's 27 minutes. It might even change to 28 minutes past 4. So I think I'm due to stop at 4:30. But Sarumi, I don't know. Goloka didn't come to me with her phone, so that probably means there were no questions. There's one little downside, actually, for these online talks like that. A little difficult to for people to sort of ask questions, and also for me to get them on my own phone, because I'm using my phone to do the talk. But just bear with me one sec. Goloka? Oh, is she aware she should even be looking on her phone? Maybe, Sarumi, if you wanted to flash something on my screen just to say yes or no if there are or aren't questions. I think I can hear Goloka coming now. Goloka? Have you got your phone? Did that, any messages from Sarumi? No? Okay, just double check. Okay, so I think... where are we now? 4:28. I will, I guess, stop and then go on to the next part of the program, which I think is managed by Manu Prabhu. I'm not 100% sure about that either. But yeah, hopefully we can. Let me finish with this. Part of our resistance is also our intelligence tries to convince us that, these people, because generally speaking, scientists, philosophers, etc., they're well-educated people from a material point of view. So, there's so many things in this world that are pushing us away from and against seeing things as they actually are. But at the very least, we should always retain a sense of understanding that never rule out. Don't allow ourselves to block through prejudice, through, I don't know, the way we've been brought up or whatever the case may be. Do not allow ourselves to rule out something that's true. That's the amazing thing. It's the absolute truth. And so how unfortunate it would be for us if we actually allow ourselves to somehow or other be tricked into ruling that out. It should be the exact opposite, of course. We should be fully embracing it and taking it on board. And look at what these wonderful personalities did. I was going to talk about that, actually, these wonderful personalities. I was just reading recently the story of the translation, production, printing, etc. of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Any of you who have a Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 17 volumes, beautiful, beautiful book with these beautiful colour pictures that are all original paintings of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya and their associates, etc. That Srila Prabhupada arrived in LA one time and they were working on the first volume of the Chaitanya. Actually, no, I tell a lie. They were working on the Srimad Bhagavatam at the time. And each one volume of the Bhagavatam, which was roughly similar to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, would take, I think it took 6 weeks from start to finish to have it actually done. And Prabhupada arrived and he said to his disciples, says, dear devotees, I need you to do the whole 17 volumes of the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 2 months. And the devotee said, that's impossible. And Prabhupada, that's when he famously quoted, and he said, oh, impossible only exists in a fool's dictionary. Everything is possible. And then basically through faith in their spiritual master, they achieved exactly what Prabhupada wanted to achieve. But the reason I'm raising that is in the context of what's the Chaitanya Charitamrita? It's the life and history, philosophy, etc. of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada was so clear. The world is so desperate for this information. And he knew he did not have much time left, and that's why he pushed and pushed to get these books finished and completed. Now I think 20 million, I think 20 million sets of Chaitanya Charitamrita have been printed and distributed around the world. So many people are benefiting from knowing about the life and history of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So why does someone like Prabhupada do this? Why does he literally, quote unquote, break his back to achieve all of these different things? Simply because he's fully aware of the situation that the world faces and that everybody living in this world is facing. And this is the only solution, the only ultimate solution to their problems for once and for all. Not just an immediate problem of a particular virus or an immediate problem of a particular financial situation or an immediate problem of a particular health situation or whatever the case may be. This actually provides the solution for us eternally. And that's who we are. We're eternal spirit souls. Okay, I think I will finish there now because now I've gone to 4:33. Thank you all very much for listening. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we're not sure exactly when that will be in terms of being able to hold our Sunday programs back in the centre in Abbey Street, where we can all congregate together and chant Hare Krishnas together. Not sure when that will happen, but I'm certainly looking forward to whenever we are able to do that. In the meantime, stay safe and chant Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada.